walk out to the show and fall at your door. We got that info for you. Touchdown on that plane and buy anything. More than just a podcast for you.
Welcome to another edition of the 10-4 YouTube show. I'm your host, James Etta, and today we have the Kevins with us again, and we also have Angela. I'm going to dive right in. So if you were watching football last week, a lot of us, unfortunately, saw Dak Prescott get a very, very gruesome injury to his ankle. His contract was in dispute over the offseason, and he chose not to sit out. I know everyone does get angry when players do sit out, but in light of his injury and the fact that he still doesn't have a long-term contract, should Dak have sat out this season or should he have played? Thoughts?
Well,
Go ahead, Angela. Go ahead.
from my understanding, when you do that franchise, I mean, you're basically trying to prove yourself. So I'm not for him sitting out, but that's one of the risks, involved, in that type of situation when you feel like you're worth more and you feel like, you deserve more money. So you don't come to an agreement on a new extension on your contract or a new contract or however it may be. I think that Dak did the right thing by going in there because, again, his numbers were on point to be, some of the best this season. And so injuries happen and it's a part of the game. When you sign up for football, there's a probability of you getting injured. Like we're in week 6 right now in the NFL and, so many guys are banged up already. And so, it's just a part of the game. So I don't think Dak was wrong or his agent was wrong for allowing him to play because, again, he was on the path to proving what he was saying, why he didn't want to sign a contract that he felt like he was worth more than. That's just my perspective.
I'm going to throw this out there before the next person chimes in. Rumor has it that he was being offered a contract that's 5 years, $175 million, $45 million a year. So I'm just going to throw that out there so we can be thinking about it.
With Dallas?
Yeah, that's the rumors. That was, he was franchised, but the last reported numbers of what he was offered is 5 years, $175 million, $45 million a year. We don't know. We don't know if it's
sound like Jimmy Jones or whatever his name is.
That's his name.
Really?
All we have was rumors.
Yeah.
That's all we have.
Agent, boy. That's a hell of an agent. Oh my God.
What is Dallas?
Well,
Kevin?
I'm gonna just speak my piece on this. Like Angela said, that that's just part of the game, and we have to make decisions for ourselves. And I'm speaking of the players; they have to make decisions for themselves and for their career. So at the end of the day, his situation was his situation, and he wanted to come back. Now some sit out because they want that money. They want the money. If they're not happy with it, they do X, Y, Z. So I'm quite sure there was a carrot based off of what you're saying. This is the only reason why I'm making this comment. Based off of what you're saying, James Etta, that's probably why he said, I'm going to come back. Because somebody gave him a carrot. He felt like he was worth more. And there it is. Happens all the time.
I'm going to just jump in and say, rumor has it, and it's all rumors, $175 million. Me personally, I don't look like what he was saying is that he wanted Russell Wilson money. And I don't think he's had Russell Wilson performance to ask for Russell Wilson money. And that's just my opinion. I think that's why he came back under the franchise, because this was, like Angela said, it's a proving year. But the thing is, if you're going to play poker, you can't bluff like that. If you genuinely have put in the work and you've earned Russell Wilson dollars, then you ask for them. But you don't ask for those dollars and you haven't actually put in the work. Like, he's only been to 3 playoff games since he's been in the NFL, and he's only won 1 of the 3. Like, I don't know if he's worth $35 million, which is what Russell Wilson gets a year. I don't know if he's worth $45 million. So I think he just asked for something that he wasn't worth.
James, you have to compare apples to apples, though. So, I love some diehard Cowboy fans, and Dak's numbers are pretty good. You got to look at the numbers. When you say you don't think he has, you're basing it on, you remember that conversation we had about, should the MVP or should you get the player of the year type of situation? You still got to compare apples with apples. Dak's numbers were better than Tony Romo's. They were better than a lot of people around the league. And so when you look at that, when you look at the caliber that he's playing at Dallas or whatever, Dallas hadn't done anything in the playoffs since like the 90s or whatever. But Dak is a young quarterback. He's a young quarterback, so he's on the path, like I said, to being one of the greats, and his numbers don't lie. His passing yards don't lie.
That's this year. Like I'm saying, you don't.
Yeah, previous years as well.
You're stuck with it's always going to be challenging when you're comparing yourself to other people, and it's
right.
hard not to. But the part of the other side of it is how much money is he bringing in for the Cowboys? Is he filling the stands? Is his style of business selling tickets? Is his style of business selling T-shirts? So there's the business side of it, and that sometimes gets confused with winning games and winning championships. And so, I don't have any problem with him playing, because I think any player, I don't know, I was trying to think to answer this question, any player who's held out and who's ultimately won. I mean, I think the NFL, it's a team sport, and they're expecting you to, be smart, not to do things in public. But when you hold out, maybe you guys could point out somebody who you feel had a long-term career after holding out and got everything they wanted. But I don't think that's the way it works. I think you play, and then, you deal with it. And unfortunately, it's a damn violent game, and people get hurt.
Okay. So we'll take that, and then we'll go to the next question in the theme of football. So far in this year of college football, we have seen a lot of high-scoring games. Lots of people are talking, especially in the SEC, about Mike Leach and his air raid. Is a lack of defense that we're seeing, and I hate to say a lack of defense, but that's what I think, is the lack of defense we're seeing because of COVID-19, or is it just because football is changing?
Well, I'm going to say this, and this is my own personal opinion. COVID is a distraction. And number 2, the level of recruits mentally that they're getting today is a bit different from when mine went through college. And I will tell you, the mentality is that I see, that I hear, and that I witness is always, I'm going to get mine. So I don't think a lot of them are 100% bought in like you used to see in the past. Play as a team, win as a team, lose as a team. And a lot of the cats that I see and talk to, I'm going to get mine. Now, mentally, we know what it takes to get on that field every weekend to go play that game and be dominant on defense. It takes a lot of mental work. And then I can say that some of the coaches in certain areas, been a lot of shuffling around. Defensive coordinators, defensive backs, it's just been so much shuffling around. And then when you put the head coach in the mix, things change, approaches change, schemes change, direction change, so dealing with all of that with an 18, 19, 20-year-old in college, and then you got the COVID piece of it. I will say it's a lack of preparation than what it used to be. You had more preparation in the past than you do now. So because you got the COVID in place where they have to follow all of these health guidelines and all of these procedures and all of these processes. And that's my opinion to it.
Well, I'll say, defense definitely wins games. And, you know, I've been able to watch a lot of college football since my younger son isn't playing yet. And so even with the commentators, I mean, I agree with what Tolliver said as far as maybe the lack of preparation, but I think a lot of these guys are getting a big head and they know they're going to the league. Like I was watching the South Carolina game yesterday, and they kept talking about that dude, the cornerback, being a NFL. You know, he's in college right now. I don't know if this is his last year or not. I don't know enough about him to speak on it. But my thing is, a lot of these cats know that they're going to the league, and so it's like, okay, like Tolliver said, let me just get mine. But I also feel that from the college perspective, some of these coaches are making things a little bit too complicated. There's so much emphasis on technique, you know, as a corner. And again, technique and all that stuff is important. My son plays cornerback, but you know, the objective is to not let your man catch the ball, right? Like the objective is to not get beat. The objective is to have extra help if your corner is not as thrifty or speedy or whatever, right? But it's like they've gone away from that. They have so much focus on technique. The young men can't even really focus on their instincts, because I feel like cornerback, you have to have good instincts. You got to have good ball skills and things like that. And so when the coaches are focusing on their scheme working instead of the player's skill set or his talent, I think a lot of that has to do with the defense, really. And it's really frustrating to me. I'm an SEC girl. And so to see Alabama allow 45 points to be put up last week made me want to throw the TV out the window. So you know, I was like, what is this?
Speaking of Bama, I feel you. I was watching last night, and I think a lot of it is mental mistakes. Definitely they needed the off season. Definitely they needed spring practice. One of the plays Georgia scored on, it was the middle of the end zone. I'm like, they ran this play 3 times. Nobody thought cover the middle. Like I'm seeing a lot of mental mistakes that I don't necessarily think that I saw last year at this point in the season.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if that's because people are shuffling, because I think it's very hard when you don't know week in and week out who's going to be on the field.
It's a multitude of things. It's so much stuff going on, and an 18, 19-year-old can't process that stuff that fast to go play against some Alabama or some freaking Florida State on a Saturday in 4 days.
I think
that's a challenge.
Too, James, there used to be a risk of going across the middle. There used to be consequences for those things, and today, there's very little consequences. The quarterback is protected. The wide receivers are protected. You know, if a kid lowers his hat, you know, he gets ejected from the game. So I see that contributing some. I'm not sure how much. But then the other aspect of it I always think about is, you know, defense should never have a bad day. You know, weather might affect offense, but defense is always about effort to me. And you guys, I mean, I think you guys make a great point about the top guy wanting to get his, but a good coach always has a second guy who wants to get the top guy. And, you know, creating that competition typically will sort out the kids that are kind of coasting their way through versus otherwise. But at least in the SEC, you know, you should have at least a guy on the bench who wants that playing time that'll keep everybody honest. And you know, I guess that's where we'll see how those adjustments go, because I think the Gators are going through that with the offense that, you know, where they gave up to Texas A&M 2 weeks ago. So they were supposed to show a new look this week, but we didn't get to see it because of COVID. So I'm excited to see what adjustments Mullen makes.
True. LSU going through it. They so young.
A good coach is also going to make adjustments, and I'm not seeing the rotations either, and that's probably the lack of the spring practice and things like that, because you don't get to see what number 2 is going to do. You don't want to even run the risk of putting number 2 in there, even though number 1 ain't performing to his highest level. But, you know, you've got depth. If you recruited correctly, or if you know who you recruited, you know why you recruited, you should have depth, and you should be able to rotate. But I'm not even seeing rotations, so I don't even see the number 2 man. I didn't see the number 2 man for South Carolina yesterday, even though the number 1 man had gotten PIs and this, that, and the other. And again, it happens. I understand at that position, but some of it was bogus. But at the same time, let's make everybody want to work to earn their spot, especially defense.
I don't know if these kids know who they are yet. There's a certain amount of reps that it takes for each individual to come into their own. And I'm looking at a bunch of kids and I see not just coaches that are trying to figure it out, but individual players are trying to figure out who am I on the field. And that makes a huge difference. Because if you look at the last few weeks, like some teams, they start off really sucky in the first half. And it's like it takes the defense a half of the game to figure out who are we today? Like you can't do that. Like you really, really, really can't do that. And this, sometimes you can turn it on in the second half and you're fine. But other times you just can't do that. And so I think another thing that's happening is that kids, they just don't know who they are because they haven't gotten the reps in.
Yeah, I agree with you, James Etta. I mean, I talk to 5 SEC DB coaches just about every month. And I say, man, what's going on? Tyler, we don't have the mental reps. They can't keep up. He said, we got too much going on, And that's why I made that statement. It's like, it's tough when you playing in that type of caliber atmosphere. SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, I'm telling you, if them reps are not their mental, they ain't touching it. That's why you don't see the rotation. That's why you don't see the rotation, Angela, because they're looking for consistency. That's the big thing right now. Whether he got ball skills or what have you, if it ain't consistent, they don't want it.
Do you think playing flag football is affecting this? That we got a bunch of DBs playing flag football in the off season and they confuse flag football with real football?
No, I don't think that's it. And that's my own opinion. I don't think so.
Are there a lot of guys playing flag football? I thought that was for the older guys.
Tackle football is tackle football.
I'm just saying, softness seems to follow all this flag football stuff.
Oh, they do a good job now because that's a money catcher, but it's also an exposure catcher too. So, but at the end of the day, I just think it's really just based off the coach and the individual. How do you transition out of that going back into the tackle game versus, the flag football type stuff? I think the flag football stuff is a way to, get your technique down, keep your body up, keep things on, just like some off-season work. That's the way I view it. But at the end of the day, I don't put a lot of money on that stuff. I mean, it's just good work on the off season.
That's a question. We'll have to dive into 7-on-7 and flag football, how it's impacting the game.